Well, I'm here today with Todd Sylvester. And Todd, it is a pleasure to be here. This is a pleasure for me. One of my favorite things, I got turned on to your story from a friend of ours, a mutual friend, Lindy Davis. Yeah. And when I started researching your information, the thing that I loved about you is it seems like you've really found your life's calling, your life's mission. Yep. And you basically spend your entire life now helping people with their belief systems. So, I mean, you can explain it better than me, but essentially that's the core of everything that you teach, right?
Yeah. And really the foundation, and we'll get into this in my story here in a minute, but really it comes down to this truth. I call it the greatest truth. And it's this, that there's nothing wrong with you. And I discovered this at the end of the tail end of my addiction. And that's what really, truly kind of led me to doing what I'm doing today. It's truly the greatest thing I get to tell my client is there's nothing wrong with you. It's amazing. I
love that. One of my favorite things, I put this out all the time, is the beauty is found in the mess. And I tie it to the fact that most of the self-inflicted pain that we feel comes from expectations of what our life is supposed to be. Right. So when you can get rid of the idea that like my life needs to be this, or my life needs to look like this, or I need to be this, and you just accept what is, like you said, there's nothing wrong with you. So I love that. I think that's becoming a very common principle that, people are discovering, because I think for so many years there was like this, it was not okay to not be okay.
Right.
And that caused a lot of shame, and that caused a lot of, suicide and these different things that happen. And I think that there's been a little bit of a shift starting where people like you are teaching and understanding more that there really isn't anything wrong with not being whatever you think the expectation of you needs to be.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, I do want to dive deep into your story. Let's start at the beginning, because you have a fascinating story and kind of what led you to where you are today.
Yeah. It kind of starts back, as a young kid, I was really passionate about sports. My dad pushed sports on me. So I played every sport growing up. I loved it. And, I learned though at a very young age, I had this all or nothing mentality. And so 8th grade comes around and I decide as an 8th grader, I'm quitting every sport but basketball. And because in my head, I'm like, I'm going to get a college scholarship. I'm going to play in the NBA, and my dad had poured a basketball court on the side of our house, and I just fell in love with basketball. And I'm like, this is what I want to concentrate on. And I was so obsessed with it. Even starting in 8th grade, I was practicing 2 hours every day. Mm-hmm. I mean, I did not miss. Now, I was a short, little skinny kid. I wasn't athletic like most of my other friends. So I knew I was going to have to work my butt off if I was going to make the team. And so from that point forward, that's kind of what I started doing. And that all or nothing mentality is a good thing, but it can also be a very negative and destructive thing, which we'll find out here in a minute. But I ended up making the freshman team at Brighton High School. I was so excited. But there was 18 kids on the team, which meant I didn't get to play very much. Right. There was so many kids, and they're trying to get everyone in. And it was actually really frustrating, but it just fueled my passion to keep trying harder and harder. And at the end of that year, end of my freshman year, I got invited to go to Bear Lake with one of my friends and his family on a 4-day camping trip. And so I went up with them, and as we pull into the campsite, everyone gets out of the car. My friend kind of holds me back. We're sitting in the very back of this, it's one of those Chevy Blazers, those old Blazers. And as everyone got out, they were walking out, and, I'm like, what's going on? He's like, just wait a minute. And then he waited for the family to kind of get far enough away, and he grabs his backpack, and he pulls out a 1/4 ounce of marijuana, which is basically a sandwich bag full. It's a lot.
Yeah. And
I didn't even know what it was. I'm like, what is that? And he's like, it's marijuana, and we're going to smoke this, and you're going to love it. And I'm sitting there thinking, okay, I didn't even hesitate. I'm like, sure, let's do it. And so we did. We smoked that bag in 4 days, the two of us. And, honestly, and this is the honest truth, I fell in love with it. I said, I'm going to smoke this every day. And that's where that all or nothing mentality kind of kicked in again. I'm like, I'm smoking this every single day. Little did I know the destructive path that was going to take me down. But at the time, completely innocent, growing up, my family, we didn't talk about these kind of things. Old school. I don't think we didn't talk much about drugs and sex, and I was just kind of going willy-nilly, figure things out as I moved along. Between my freshman and sophomore year, I grew 8 inches.
Wow.
Which is great for basketball. Got really tall the next year, but I was still really dedicated to basketball. I'm practicing. At this point, I'm up to about 3 hours. I'm not kidding you. I am like I mean, I drove my neighbors nuts. I was bouncing the ball 24/7. They would call my parents, would you tell your son to quit bouncing that ball? And so anyway, I worked so hard that I made the team again sophomore year and ended up making the starting point guard. Ended up playing some JV and some varsity. We ended up taking first in state. I led the team in every category, the sophomore and JV team. My junior year, we took second in state. My senior, and I led the team in every category as well. My senior year, I was voted team captain with 2 other guys, and ended up taking first in state again. Uh-huh. So I had a really good run, and I played with some amazing basketball players. We had a really tough-nosed coach, but he was really good at the same time. But to go back a little bit, I after Bear Lake, just a couple weeks later, I had another friend of mine whose parents went out of town for the weekend, and they asked me if I'd ask a family member to get us some beer for a party. So yeah, I said, "What? Yeah, I'll do that." So I asked this family member, and he ended up getting us 10 cases of beer. That's a lot of beer for the first. And this is the first time most of my friends or any of us have drank.
Had you been smoking marijuana consistently since Bear Lake, or that was just for that weekend, and this was the second occasion?
I started because the guy I went to Bear Lake with had a connection with this dealer, and I could get it, and so I started buying it every week from that point forward. So I was smoking it, and then I ended up getting drunk for the first time, and I drank so much the first time I passed out, blacked out, woke up the next morning, and my friends were like saying, "Oh, dude, you were so crazy last night. You were doing this, and you're talking to these girls," and it started to kind of feed my ego. And I'm like going, "Whoa, wow, I'm accepted." And it's kind of silly to say it out loud now, but at the time that meant so much to me. I'm like, "Wow, my friends think I'm cool," and that all or nothing mentality kicks in. I thought, I'm gonna party every weekend like this. So
well, and that's the most vulnerable age, is that 8th grade. I always say to everybody, that's the hardest year of your life, because that is when you're most vulnerable. Nothing's new anymore. You're still trying to figure yourself out.
For sure.
You don't even know who your friends are yet. It's all evolving. And so that was the exact age when this is all going
Absolutely.
on with you.
And that's why it felt so good when I see all my friends saying how crazy I was. I thought, wow, I'm accepted. They think I'm cool. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to continue doing what they think is cool, right? So I started drinking every weekend, smoking pot every day. And then, I started doing this throughout all of high school. Towards the end of my, about the middle of my sophomore year, I started kind of getting bored with just smoking pot and drinking. So I started experimenting with other things. I started popping speed and snorting cocaine and, doing mushrooms and, cough syrup back then, and anything I could get my hands on. And I was just like, and I started getting this reputation as a partier, and I would throw parties at my house when my parents would go out of town.
Did they have any inclination that you had kind of started down this road at all, your parents at that time?
They knew. Well, here's the thing. My parents were always like, especially my dad was like, if you drink, don't drive. I took that as, I got the green light.
Right.
So I'm going to drink. I just won't drive. And so they knew I was drinking, but they had no idea. I hid the drugs really well from them. They always probably, if they saw me high, they probably thought it was just because I was drunk or something. But I hid it really well from them. So by the time my senior year comes around, though, this is when things really started to catch up with me. I'm doing heavy drugs now. Like I said, I got that reputation as this partier. And, my senior year is when I noticed this voice in my head that was telling me that I was pathetic. I was no good. No girl's ever going to want to be with me. You look funny. And you're a loser, basically. And I've always had that voice, because we all have it. It's this little voice that's that nagging voice.
I call it the drunk monkey.
Yeah.
Right? It's just, he's just always there. Yeah. And they do it because they're trying to shield you from pain. Your ego is trying to keep you from doing something like, don't go talk to girls. You'll get rejected. That'll cause pain. But in reality, it's working against you 24/7.
24/7. Yeah. I call it the bully, because it feels like it pushes me around kind of thing.
Sure.
But I noticed it got really loud in my head my senior year. And I walked around. I was really depressed. And I didn't put it together with the partying. I was playing... I play a couple really good games in my senior year. Then I play a couple really bad games, and my coaches and my family and my friends were like, "What is wrong with you?" And I'm like, "I don't know," but I didn't put it together with, well, it's because I'm freaking getting high every day, and so I was really depressed, and that voice in my head was really, really loud, and I had suicidal thoughts, there's kids in our high school who had taken their lives. And so you start thinking, well, now I kind of get why they did what they did, because I don't like this. This hurts. And, it was just a really, really rough year. We ended up taking state, like I said, my senior year. The state final game, I played one of the best games of my life. I mean, it was just like it all came together that night. We destroyed the other team we played, and it was amazing. A week later from that, I got offered a full ride scholarship, and I was so excited. I was like, man, that was my goal. That's what I wanted. This was towards the end of my senior year, and I thought, well, I've got the scholarship in hand. I'm going to party like I've never partied before in my life. And again, that all or nothing mentality. And I honestly, this sounds ridiculous when I say it out loud, but as I was going to any party, in my head, I'm like, I'm going to be the craziest guy who goes in here. I'm going to do the craziest things in here. This person's doing this. I will one up them in front of everybody. And that was kind of my mentality. And I just said it to myself. I wasn't like trying to.
Well, it's kind of seems like it's a pattern for people that are, that go all in on things. I don't know if you've read Andre Agassi's book, Open. It's one of the best books I've ever read, because the same thing, like once he finally had that outlet, because it was just so intense tennis since he could walk. Same thing with Tiger Woods a little bit, right?
Yeah,
that happened. And so it's not completely uncommon. I feel like people that are very passionate or driven in areas of their life, they want to party just as hard.
Yeah. It's kind of like that all or nothing mentality.
Yeah.
If I'm going to party, I'm going to party.
Yeah.
I'm not going to just kind of... And
anything worth doing is worth overdoing,
exactly.
Right?
But I want to share one example of how bad things got, because I think it'll be great for your listeners to understand and know where I was and how I got where I am today. But we were at a party. I think it was right before graduation, my senior year, and one of my friends pulled out a beer bong. And for those who don't know what a beer bong is, it's a funnel that you duct tape a 2-foot tube to that's about 1 inch in diameter.
Right.
And you can put any liquid in it and lift it up over your head, and it shoots it down your throat in 2 seconds. And so they pulled out this beer bong at this party, and it was a packed party. Everyone was there, and we got in this big circle, and everyone's going to outdo each other. You're going to drink one, and this person will do 2, and it's going to go around and see if we can just. Well, I'm towards the end of that circle, and I thought, okay, when it gets to me, I'm going to blow everyone away. So when it gets to me, I grabbed a 5th of vodka and dumped it in there.
An entire 5th of vodka?
Entire 5th. And the guy next to me, my friend Drew, looks at me and goes, don't do that. I'll never forget that. But that's the last thing I remember. I lifted that up over my head, drank a 5th of vodka in 2 seconds.
That's equivalent of how many shots?
17 shots.
Wow.
And here's the thing. I was already drinking, so I don't know how many beers I had before that. I was a really skinny kid. I mean, I weighed like 140 pounds my senior year. I mean, I'm skinny. My blood alcohol level would have been, I didn't know it then, but I figured this out later, would have been 0.51.
Wow.
Lethal is 0.42.
Yeah, I could have sent you straight into
I should have died.
Yeah.
I wake up the next evening at 6 p.m., like literally almost 24 hours later, I come to, and I'm in my friend's living room holding a toilet seat, and I'm covered head to toe in blood. And I'm like, and I can barely talk. It feels like someone shoved a knife through my throat. And I guess I had been puking blood all night, all day. And I wake up and I'm still wasted. I mean, I should have died. And I didn't, but I wanted to share that. That's how bad things got. That's where my head was. Wow. And guess what? All my friends were saying.
That was the best thing ever.
That's the craziest thing we've ever seen, Todd. I've never seen someone do that. Fed my ego again. There's my ego. Oh, wow. See? Yeah, that's where I get my validation. But when I was, at this point, when I was sober, that voice in my head was like, you're the biggest loser. You're pathetic. No one's ever going to want to be with you. You know, who does this kind of stuff? And anyway, seriously, very, very depressed. And I hid that really well from my friends and my family. I just kept to myself. About a month later, middle of the summer, I'm now practicing with the team I got the scholarship with. 2 weeks into it, coach pulls me into his office and says, what's going on? And right when he said that, I knew I was in trouble because I wasn't playing well. Mentally, spiritually, physically, I was a mess. And I said, oh, coach, I know I'm not playing well, but I will try harder. And he says, I don't have time to waste, Todd. You know, I got kids here walking on that are playing way better than you. And I'm taking away your scholarship. And dude, I was crushed. I got on my knees literally and I said, Coach, please give me another chance. Please give me another shot. He goes, I'm sorry. And it was over. And my first thought was, how am I going to tell my dad? And then how am I going to tell all my friends? I mean, it's embarrassing. I've been bragging about, hey, I got a scholarship, you know?
Well, and when you're that age, people forget once you're older. But when you're that young age, it's your entire life. Oh, yeah. I mean, everything. I was baseball the same way. Like, so it's your entire life, right? It's everything. It's your whole identity is wrapped up in this. So every ounce of self-worth that you had was wrapped up in your ability to play basketball in that point in your life.
Absolutely. And when that happened, I became this angry drunk. I would punch holes in the wall. When I would drink, I threw a chair through a window for no reason. Like, we're just sitting there at a park. I grab a chair, chuck it through the window, and everyone's looking at me. What the hell are you doing? I was hurting so bad inside because of that very reason that you just described, Jimmy. And so it was a tough time. I ended up trying out at several other colleges, got cut from every single one. And I found myself living down south here in Utah with 5 other guys. And it was just this big party house. And I call it this nasty house because we didn't clean it. Like, we had this big brick wall fireplace. And when we were done with our beer bottles, we would just chuck them and let them shatter. And we didn't pick it up. Wow. We had people peeing in the corners. I mean, we didn't clean it. We punched holes in the wall. I mean, it was bad. And
your poor landlord is a real estate owner.
I know. Yeah. I hate to even say it. Yeah. The couple, we were actually renting it, and the couple they were serving a mission for their church, and we destroyed this house. Destroyed it. But really, it was an outward manifestation of what was going on inside of me. Yeah. I was really, truly a mess, wanting to be dead. That voice in my head, kill yourself, Todd. Just do it. Ended up trying out at several other places, like I said. And I'm down at this house, and all I'm doing is I'm attempting to try to go to school at this junior college down there. But I'm not going to class. I'm failing classes. And the reality hits me, and I'll never forget, it was on a Thursday. And I don't know why I remember this, but it was Thursday. And the reality hit me, basketball's over. It's done. You know, at this point, I got friends who have graduated from college now. You know, I'm working as a bartender on the weekends. You know, I'm not going to school. I'm saying I'm going to school, but I'm not going. I'm just like, man, life's passed me by. This opportunity, that's my identity, gone. You know, it was gone when the scholarship, but then I thought, okay, I'll try it a few other places. I'll make one of them. Nope.
So was that your rock bottom in that point?
That's when... There was a Thursday. That was my rock bottom, because in my head I was going, why? What's the point at this point? What? I got no other skills. I'm not smart. I suck at school. That voice in my head. And I decided I was going to kill myself. And I knew exactly how I was going to do it. My dad had a shotgun in his closet. I knew where the shells were. And we had this juniper bushes in our backyard at our house. And I knew if I went between those juniper bushes and shot myself there, no one would find me for like forever. It'd take a long time. And so I just started playing these scenarios in my head, how I'm going to go do this. And so Friday comes, and I usually go home on the weekends up here to Salt Lake, because I was a bartender up here at a local restaurant, which is not good for someone who's drinking and doing drugs, because that was prevalent everywhere. Yeah. But I loved it at the time, because I thought, oh wow, I get free booze and I can do drugs.
You have an excuse to meet people.
Absolutely. Sure. So Friday comes, I get in my car, and I'm heading to go home and do what I was planning on doing, taking my life. And for some reason, I decided to stop at the community college down there, where me and my friends would go sit and hang out. And we'd sit at lunchtime and just kind of socialize at these big round tables that we'd sit at, check out girls, things that guys do, right? And for some reason, I thought, I'm going to go there first. Because when I was leaving, about the time it was about lunchtime, and I just had, I'm going to go there first. So I go there, I sit down, and we're sitting there. And to kind of paint this scenario, we'd always sit there, but there was these 2 LDS girls that would come sit with us every time. We didn't invite them. They would just come sit with us. And they were so open and, positive and happy and nice. And we, especially me, I was really rude to these girls. I would tease them about their religion. I would tell them, it's a joke. What are you doing? And they would just laugh, let it roll off their backs. And they really bugged me, and I think because they were just so happy and I was miserable. But they just seemed like they knew they got their life figured out. I'm lost. But this particular time, I'm sitting at this round table. I'm here, and all my friends are around this way, and these two girls just happen to be sitting right next to me. Everyone's in their own conversation. I'm in my head thinking about what I'm going to go home and do. I'm going to go home and kill myself. And there was times in that moment I wanted to maybe say something to a friend like I'm really struggling, but then I thought, no, they won't understand, or they won't care, or whatever. I don't know. But I overhear these two girls talking as I'm sitting there, and I overhear them say something like fasting and prayer. I had never heard those words together. I honestly didn't even know what fasting was. I'm like, what is that? And so I didn't want to say anything in front of everyone. I thought, okay, I'll wait till everyone stands up to go where we're going to go, and then I'll ask them. So they all get up. The two girls start to walk away, and I follow them for a minute. And I'm nervous to say something. I'm like, oh, do I say no? And then I just said, yeah, I'm going to ask them. And I say, hey, hold on a minute. And they're like, what? I go, were you guys just talking about fasting and prayer back there? And they're like, yeah, why do you want to know? And I'm like, I'm being dead serious this time. I'm not going to tease you about it. I don't even know what it is. Will you explain it to me what it is? So they start to explain, well, in our religion, we fast once a month, and we start with a prayer, and we go the whole day without eating or drinking water and whatever else. And as they're explaining this to me, I'm thinking, what is the point of this? I thought it was ridiculous. I really did. I'm like, this is weird. And they go, and then we end with a prayer. And I'm like, and then I ask them, what's the point? And I'll never forget it. One of the girls got right in my face and says, if you want help from God. And when she said that, I wasn't raised religious, but I wasn't raised to not believe in a God. We just never talked about it. So I was kind of like, neither way. There wasn't one, there was one. I was just kind of in the middle. But when she said that, I thought, is there a God, and would he help me? And I'm not kidding. When she said that, it just hit me like, boom. And I just told him thanks. And as I started to walk away, I said, you know what? I'm not going home. I'm gonna stay down here at this house, at the party house, and I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do what those girls said. So Saturday comes, and I can't even remember if I called in sick to my work. I don't even remember. I really don't. But I stayed there. Saturday comes, and the girls said, start with a prayer. So I don't want my roommates to see what I'm doing, right?
Yeah, sure.
I'm like, and I'm like thinking this is still a little weird. I'm not gonna lie. I was like, this is bizarre. I find this coat closet, and it's so stuffed with coats, I literally have to get on my knees. So I close the door, and I'm literally on my knees, and it is, if you looked at it from above, it'd look kind of silly. What's this dude doing in this tight coat closet? But I remember just kind of looking up and saying, God, if you're there, I need help. And then I went the whole day. For the first time, I didn't smoke pot in the morning. I didn't pop a pill. I didn't snort a line. I didn't drink. And I made it till about noon. And I was really angry and frustrated, and if anyone's ever fasted before, you get kind of cranky. Mm-hmm. But I'm also not doing drugs or drinking. And even my roommates are like, what's your problem? I'm like, nothing. But the girls sat in with the prayer. So I went back in that same closet, closed the door, and I get out, on my knees, and I just said, God, if you're there, I need help. I did this fast. If you're there, I need you. And I just waited. I was really naive. I thought, well, if God's real, he'll show up right now. He never showed up. And I actually got really frustrated. That night I got wasted again. I was still having suicidal thoughts. I was going back and forth. And a month later, I get a call from one of my friends, about a month after that, I guess, who I played basketball with at Brighton. And I hadn't seen him since high school. And he was doing great in his life and just a great, solid guy. And he calls me and says, hey, where are you at? And I said, well, here's where I'm living. He goes, hey, you're right by me. I would love to catch up with you. Would you come over? I'm like, yeah, sure. And I thought that was a little weird too, because I haven't talked to him. I'm like, okay, yeah, I'll come over. So I go over to his apartment. We sit down like you and I right here, and we just start doing weather talk. Hey, what's been going on? And I'm just pretending everything's okay. And then his name is Rich. And Rich all of a sudden starts saying all these good things about me. Todd, you're going to help so many people in your life. You're going to do so much good in this world. And you're going to help a lot of kids. They kept saying that. I thought it was really weird. And I'm going, and in my head I'm going, this guy has no clue how I'm living my life, right? because it's not just the drugs and the alcohol abuse. It's the lying, the cheating, the stealing, the manipulating, the bad things I was doing with girls. I mean, I was not living good. Mm-hmm. So it was really uncomfortable. I finally stopped. Why are you saying this? And he says, Todd, I did not go to work today because I need to share a message with you. And I'm like, okay, is everything all right? I mean, just weird. I'm like, what's going on? And he goes, no, I need to share something with you. And I can tell he's nervous. He's over there just, I'm like, okay, tell me, and he's just sitting there, and he takes this deep breath, and he finally just looks me in the eye, and he says, the Lord came to me last night and says, we need you on our side today. And when he said that, it was, again, another like punch in the face, but a good punch, right? Yeah. But I felt this overwhelming feeling of just love. It's the only way I can describe it. I know it might sound corny to the listeners. I don't know how to describe it. And I'll be honest with you, it actually scared me because I wasn't used to feeling something so good. Yeah. And long story short, he lined me up with a bishop that I started working with. And my very first visit with this bishop, he sat me down and he just looked at me and says, tell me what's going on. And I'm just like, I'm not telling you anything, man. Yeah. No way. I don't even know you. And he just sat there. And I thought I'd be in there for 5 minutes. I ended up staying there for 3 hours. I unloaded on this guy. And he said, basically, I want you to start seeing me once a week for the next year. And I'm like, there's no way I'm doing that, And anyway, so I started meeting with this guy once a week, and he ended up being kind of like my rehab. But he also told me, be honest. I need you to be honest every time you come see me. And I'm like, well, what do you mean exactly? He goes, if you use, if you drink, if you cheat, lie, steal, I want you to tell me these things. And I'm like, yeah, I think I can do that.
What a blessing. Because, I mean, it's even, most bishops or a lot of bishops might not have reacted the same way to have a guy that really understood where you probably were and what you needed. I guess maybe that story is more common than not also. I don't know. But just to have that person in that moment to understand you and not judge you, but to be able to just be a support for you. Yeah. Probably meant everything.
You're right. I'm glad you brought that up, Jimmy, because that truly was an amazing moment. Because as I'm telling him all this stuff, I'm thinking, he's got to be thinking, throw me out. What's he thinking? And I've never felt so much love from a guy. And he's just like, I'm willing to meet with you as long as it takes. So again, I start meeting with this guy once a week, and every week I meet with him. Yep, I got high every day. I got drunk. I cheated. I lied. And it takes me 8 months before I can look him in the eye and said, I made it 3 days clean this week. 8 months after that.
And you were still going and seeing him every week?
Every week, yep.
Wow.
And I was still doing drugs, partying. That voice in my head, though, was still going, like, you're pathetic, you're no good, this is too hard, you'll never be clean, you'll never be sober, this is just your life, this stuff that this guy's telling you doesn't mean anything anyways. And I mean, just beating myself up. But he was so patient and loving. It was just the coolest thing. Well, about this 8-month mark, and I'm still a bartender, which is not a good idea. But as a bartender, I get tips from the waiters and waitresses, right? And anyone that sat at the bar. And I get a lot of change, and I keep this change in the cup holders in my car, right? And I used to love to try to get as many quarters in there. I just loved them stacked in quarters. I'd use it for gas money and things like that, and sometimes drugs and things like that. But I had about this 8-month mark when I made it 3 days clean, but I'm still struggling. I have about $40, I think, worth of quarters, nickels, and dimes and pennies in there. And I'm driving up on it. It's a Saturday. The sun's shining. It's a beautiful day. I can't remember if I was going home or leaving, but I have to go over this road called Newcastle. It's in Willow Creek, big windy road, right? And I'm driving, and as I'm driving, out of the corner of my eye, I see this little girl selling lemonade. No big deal. I keep driving right on past. But I have this impression that comes over me and basically said, turn around and give her all the money in your car. I thought, whoa, that'll be cool. Because I had a ton of change. And I thought, so I flip a Yui. And, I didn't know it then. But that moment, I didn't realize what that was going to do for my life. So I flip my car around. I roll my window down. And there's cute little Lindy. I didn't know who she was at the time. Lindy Davis. And I think she was in 4th grade. Just this cute little girl. And I'm like, how much for a cup? She said, I think she said 25 cents. And I said, I'll take one. So she pours it, hands it to me, and I set it on my dash. And I tell her, hold your hands out like this. So here she is, and she has no idea what's going to happen. I start scooping all this money in her hands, dude. And she's freaking out. She's like, no way, no way. I'm like, hold on, I got more. And this takes me like 9 scoops, and I'm getting every little. And she's freaking out. She's like, thank you so much. And all of a sudden, when I get the last scoop in her, she drops it and takes off into the house. And I'm thinking, she's going to go tell her parents some dude just gave her $1 million, right? And as I pull away, I just start to cry like I've never cried before in my life. I cry so hard, I have to pull my car over and put it in park. And I just put my face in my hands and I sob. Because for the first time in my life, Jimmy, that I could remember, that I ever did something for someone else. Because as an addict and an alcoholic, you don't care. I'll lie to you, I'll cheat you, I'll manipulate you to get what I want. I don't really care about you. But to see Lindy's face, and I mean, it's still burned on my brain, this big old smile and her freaking out. And that all or nothing mentality kicks in. And I said, if she's there next Saturday, I'm giving her all my money. And so I do this the next Saturday, give her all my money. I do this the next Saturday, give her all my money. I do this the next Saturday. I do this for 2.5 months. And every time I pull away, I have to pull my car over and I just sob. And in that moment, that voice in my head was gone. I loved who I was in that moment. This truly lit my soul on fire. One of my favorite quotes I have in my office for my clients to see is by Ferdinand Foch. It says, the most powerful weapon on earth is the human soul on fire. This lit my soul on fire. It was more intense than any high I've ever experienced. And I do this for 2.5 months. And that's when I realized so many things that I'm teaching my clients now, even like, and there's more to it. Can I keep going, or where are we at?
Yeah. So at that point, no, you're fine. It's an amazing story. I wanted to, I've listened to your podcast enough. I knew this story, but I wanted you to share that story because of the power of that moment, right? Yes. And the power of the difference of all of a sudden you realize your life meant something. You realize you could make other people happy as well. Yeah. All those things that you're kind of experiencing at that time. So what, in that moment, what changes or what happened from that moment going forward where you dedicated your entire life now to helping kids and people in trouble?
Just to jump ahead just a little bit, I ended up getting invited. Lindy invites me to a daddy-daughter date. Oh. Okay.
And you're how old at this time? 23?
23-ish. Yeah, 22, 23, I think. And so I say yes to this, and I go to this daddy-daughter date. We're up there. I don't want to be there in the sense that I don't know anyone. It's out of place. They're having hot dogs and Kool-Aid. I'm used to partying, and here I am with this pure, innocent little girl. And I'm like, I can't even believe I'm here. Well, long story short, because I want to get to these principles, they call everyone in to kind of bless the food with a prayer, which I thought was weird. Because I never done that before. Sure. I'm like, what are we doing? Is something wrong with the hot dogs or something? And so they start blessing the food.
It's always a good idea to bless the hot dogs.
Yeah, I think so. After I've seen those made. But this guy just gives a simple little prayer to bless the food and just tell God how grateful we are for it. And it was in that moment, right then and there, that the lemonade stand giving, all of that, and that just was like the crowning moment when I felt again that God's love, that I was in the right place doing the right thing. That's when I said, I'm going to dedicate my life, the rest of my life, to helping kids like Lindy or adults or anyone not have to go through what I went through. And I've been doing it ever since. I've been clean now, I think, close to 29 years.
Wow.
And this has just been my life's work. I've done over 15,000 coaching sessions, one-on-one sessions, over 1,000 speaking events. I did a drug-free program in elementary school right after Lindy.
What was the focus of the drug-free program that you did?
It was basically obviously telling kids to stay away from it, but then teaching them to believe in themselves and to tell them things, good thoughts, right? Because they turn into beliefs, and that's where it all kind of started. Yeah. And it's kind of cool how that kind of morphed into what it is today.
So, and your coaching and speaking and everything that you do is about changing your beliefs. And I'm a huge believer in that. I very much, anyone that listens to me knows how much I love Tony Robbins and some of these where you have to change the belief system in order to change the actions, right?
Absolutely.
And so somebody that's struggling, this is one of the reasons why I was so excited to talk to you, is somebody that's struggling with who they are. I have friends that whether they're addicted to alcohol or pornography or they just don't feel like their life's going the direction they want. They have this belief that they've kind of let themselves down. They shame themselves, right?
Right.
What are the first steps, or how do you take somebody in that situation and help them make a change in their belief system?
Well, yeah, and everyone's a little different, but you're right. Belief dictates behavior. Change the belief, behavior will change. And so, I have some techniques, but a couple things I want to kind of set the stage is, what I learned at the lemonade stand is this principle. If you want to be, give it away. So if you want to be happy, go give away happiness. Now, I hear this from my clients all the time, especially almost on day one. They're like, I just want to be happy, Todd. And I'll say, well, you just declared to God and the universe and yourself that you don't have it because you say you want it. So, and then I'll say, where's it going to come from? And they typically can't answer that question. And then I'll tell them that principle. If you want to be, go give it away.
That's a great principle.
So if you want to be happy, go give away happiness. But they'll say, well, I'm not happy. And I'll say, you're right. You can't give away what you don't possess. But what they don't realize is they actually possess it. They just don't know it yet. So go give it away today and watch what happens. So you go give away happiness. Guess what? You get happiness. Or you already realize you already had it. It's the coolest, most powerful principle that I've ever come across in this. And so that's kind of where I get started with my clients, is like, it's on you. I can't make you happy. You got to figure this out. And I'll give you the tools, but it starts there.
Yeah, I think when people are feeling unhappy with themselves, they tend to try to withdraw and they don't do anything for other people. They kind of isolate sometimes, or they treat people poorly, as kind of like you had mentioned you were doing. It is funny because I had a Christmas 7-8 years ago, just to tell a quick story, but I was just feeling a little down about being single at Christmas. And I was like, I want to do something for somebody else where I knew that principle. Like if I can make other people happy, I know I'm going to feel good. And so I decided to do a Sub for Santa date auction where we auctioned off all my friends. I figured if I can raise $1,500, give Christmas to 2 or 3 families, this will be a great way for me to get outside myself, share Christmas. It went crazy. We made over $30,000 from this date auction. And so we ended up giving Christmas for like 200 people. Oh, wow. So like the entire month of December, we're buying gifts, we're wrapping gifts, we're delivering them, we're finding people to give them. It was amazing. And I remember that it's funny because it became, that December 24th hit and I was done. We delivered all the gifts and I'm very much was trying to make sure that we hit everybody. Cause I knew if we even missed one kid, even though we had 200, that kid no longer had Christmas. That was a big deal to me to make sure. And I get an email the morning of Christmas Eve and it's, hey, this family just hasn't heard from you yet. Just wanted to know if you're still bringing them their gifts. Like, no, and I was like, we're done. I've spent all the money. This is 2011. Like I wasn't, times were a little tough. And I'm like, gosh, I emailed them back. I don't know how, but this family somehow got lost in it all. Never even knew about this family. When I decided, I'm like, you know what? And at first I was kind of annoyed. I was like, God, I don't have any money left. I don't have time to do this. I got stuff going on. And I told them though, you know what? I kind of said, if I don't do this, nobody will. But I was like, I'm going to go do this. And so anyway, bought the stuff. I didn't have time to wrap it, but I bought all the wrapping stuff. It was like 4 kids and 5 kids I'm shopping for. And it was funny because I'm like, hey, tell the family I'll be there after dinner tonight. It'll be around 9:30, 10 o'clock. So I remember it started snowing bad. It was out in Harriman and I'd been coming from Murray. So I mean, it's like 20 miles away. And I drive out there and I get to this cul-de-sac and there's no house. I'm just like, you've got to be kidding me. Wow. And then I look about 50, 100 yards out into the snow. There's this little shack. And I'm like, oh, that must be the house. So I start trudging out there with these garbage sacks full of toys and wrapping stuff. And I get to the house, I knock on the door and they answer. It's 10:30, and they answer and they're like so excited. This family, it was a little Mexican family. And they were so excited and they didn't have anything. I mean, they had a little tree and there was nothing. And it ended up, the reason I tell the story is that moment, I was able to see they were so happy. They were so grateful
Right.
for that experience and for me, like just idiot kid that just decided to do something, right? Like,
Right.
who am I? I just decided, I'm going to have a cool Christmas. I'm going to do this thing. And there was so much happiness that it became my favorite Christmas I'd ever had. Yeah. That Christmas Eve was the best Christmas Eve I've ever had. And I remember feeling so good and so happy at the end of that night. And I was so grateful. You start crying on the side of the road because you're just so grateful that you listen to that part of you that's like, you need to go do this.
Yeah.
Like, go deliver the gifts. Right. And you think it's for them, but in reality, you get more than you ever give.
Yeah. And that's really when I was giving that money to Lindy every Saturday, I was giving it away. And every time I gave it away, I gained so much. It literally changed my life. And here's the other principle that I teach, and we talked about this in the beginning a little bit, is that I have a quote above my head. So when my client sits down, it's the first thing they read. And I actually I say, read it out loud. And it's this. It says, the most delightful surprise in life is to suddenly recognize there's nothing wrong with you. It's right there above my head. And it's so fascinating. Like, I'll be talking to a heroin addict who's been slamming heroin for 5 years. And this is my first session with them. And they're looking at me like, you mean to tell me there's nothing wrong with me? They're looking at me like I'm crazy, right? Mm-hmm. I'm like, yeah, you just don't know it yet. But you watch. When you figure this out, it'll be the most delightful surprise. You'll do a cartwheel. I'll never forget. It was probably maybe the third or fourth time, and I don't even know if I've told Lindy this. When I gave the money to her at the lemonade stand, it was probably the third or fourth time. Again, crying, just feeling so grateful, so amazing. And it hit me. I'm like, there's nothing wrong with me. Mm. And I kid you not, I did a cartwheel when I got out of the car, and then I sprinted around the block because I was just so elated. I was like, this is the most incredible thing I've ever felt. And so those two principles together are so important in all this.
Well, I think is it the fact that you now know I'm capable of creating this happiness and I'm capable of feeling this joy. All of a sudden, all of your fears that your voice in your head was telling you, are lies in that moment.
Yeah. And it had been habitual, so those thoughts were still coming in. But that's the other thing I teach my clients. This is how you change a belief system. It's real simple. When those negative thoughts come into your head, it's no longer me. It's I label it the bully. You call it the drunken monkey. We can call it whatever. Call it Tinkerbell. It doesn't matter. But I objectify the thought by going, that's not me. Mm. And then I say, I, Todd, in the opposite of what it's telling me in the moment. So if the thought comes in, I'm stupid. Oh, I'm so stupid. Oh, there it is. I'll objectify the thought, and then I'll say, I, Todd, am brilliant. I combat it with the truth. And repetition deepens the impression. So as I say the truth and add my name to it, which makes it 100 times more powerful without your name, subconsciously, I start reshaping my belief system around that. So now pretty soon, the brain does this remarkable thing. Now the negative thought, it's no longer me. I know it. And it gets to the point where I don't have to do it anymore because now I got the new belief system. Once the belief system's there, I don't have to sit there and think about it.
So somebody that's not seeing a counselor or a therapist or whatever, is it affirmations in the morning? Is it what's the?
I don't even know if I like the word affirmations because you can say all the affirmations you want, but if your self-image or belief system doesn't believe it or it doesn't fit, it just kind of bounces off. It doesn't sink in. Mm-hmm. That's why I have my clients add their name to it. But if you want to call it an affirmation, great. I call it a power statement. It's like, I, Todd, am brilliant. I, Todd, matter. I, Todd, am good enough. I, Todd, am caring and loving and kind and all these things, right? And it almost sounds, the biggest pushback I get from my clients, it can't be that easy. Well, it actually is that easy, but I've found too, a lot of people won't put in the time to say these things over and over again and get rid of those negative thoughts. They just let them go.
So when I was in my young 30s, I had a little bit of shame around I felt like I was supposed to be something else than what I was, even though on the surface and even deep down, I was really killing life. I was doing very well, right. But I just had this shame of why aren't you married? What's wrong with you? Yeah. Why aren't you good enough? All those fears that we all have. And I was turned on to the Ho'oponopono prayer. I don't know if you're familiar or not. And it was so powerful because essentially what it is I've never shared this on the podcast. And so it's something that, but just that idea of that loving yourself and understanding that you truly are good enough in every way. But basically it's a prayer that you say to yourself and you say, I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. And you just say that over and over. And I would look at myself in the mirror and I would say those things to me. And you start to truly love yourself. Yeah. It's the weirdest thing. I know it sounds quirky because it kind of reminds me, it's like, it's like the Saturday Night Live skit when, Michael Jordan's doing affirmations and he's like, it's okay if you're not good at basketball. And he's like, just say it. I'm good enough. But it's like in that moment, you're kind of like, but I would just say to myself over and over, and you start to forgive yourself because you were dealing with the best information you had at the time. And you forgive yourself. You say you're sorry. You thank yourself for all the good that you are, and you see that. Absolutely. And so I think there's a lot of power. I love attaching your name to it, like you said, to make it more real and more believable to your own self. Is that?
Yeah, and the studies I have found is when you add your name to it, you don't notice it maybe when you're saying it out loud, whether you use your name or not. But subconsciously, on a subconscious midbrain level, it's 100 times more powerful. So when you add your name, it's like if I saw you walking across the street and I said, hey, Jimmy, you're going to turn and you're going to wake. It's like every cell in your body wakes up. It's the same thing when you say your name to yourself. I, Jimmy, am brilliant. I, Jimmy, am a good person. I, Jimmy, can do whatever I set my mind to, And so, and it seems simple. The key is consistency and sticking with it. Most people I have found seem to give up after, I've done it for a week and it doesn't seem like, or I feel great and I'm going to stop. And then 2 weeks later, I'm right back in my old belief system. Well, you got to stay consistent. And that's where the work comes in. You got to kind of stay consistent there.
So what other thing, let's say somebody that's listening to this right now and they're having thoughts that, they're like, yes, that was me. That's me right now. Where Todd was, that's my story. I feel like I'm not good enough. I feel like I don't matter. I feel like I don't want to be here. Give us a little idea of what that person can do to try to flip the script.
Well, one of the things I have my clients do, and you can do this too, the listeners who maybe don't know who to go to or whatever, is, and this is not the funnest assignment, but you actually write down, how does that negative voice talk to you? What are you saying to yourself? Write it out. I suck. I'm no good. I'm a loser. I look pathetic. I'll never have a girlfriend. I can't do this. And now you got this, I call it the bully playlist. So now you got this list of how you kind of talk to yourself. And there it is on paper.
So you can recognize it as the bully instead of yourself. Is that?
And then I have them flip it. And I call it like the champion list, where you take each one. So if the first one says, I'm stupid, over here you'd put, I, Todd, am brilliant. Next one says, I look funny. I, Todd, look amazing. Or, I work with a lot of women who have some body image issues, like they hate their legs or their hair, or their face or their nose, or they're real specific. I had a girl that I was working with who hated her legs. She's like, Todd, I hate my legs. They're so ugly. By the way, they weren't. And so she would say to herself, I have ugly legs. And I told her, you need to start saying I have gorgeous legs and add your name to it. And I won't say her name because, just for her identity here, to keep her confidentiality. But she flipped it by doing this. And to this day, she now believes she has gorgeous legs. And she goes, even when I look in the mirror, I see gorgeous legs now. It took a minute, but she got there. So I would recommend doing that, because you're getting it out on paper. There it is. Here's the old list. Here's what you're going to now start saying when you hear these thoughts or feel them.
Wow.
Boom.
Well, and there's so much power in that too, because energy is such a real thing, and people are picking up your energy of how you feel about yourself, how you carry yourself. Sure. If you think you have ugly legs, it's bizarre, but the world's going to let other people know that too. And if you think you have gorgeous legs, I always tell my guy friends, I say, women in general don't care what your body looks like. They care about what you feel about what your body looks like.
Yeah,
Same thing with what you wear when you go out. Like people always say, does this look good? And I say, it doesn't matter. Do you feel confident? Do you feel good in that shirt? If you feel good, then it's good. If you don't feel good, then go put something else on.
Yeah, it goes with the old saying, your energy introduces yourself when you walk into a room. You don't have to say a word. Yeah. So I love that. Yeah, if you're confident in what you're wearing, you walk in, people will feel that energy, man.
That's right.
Yeah, I love that. So yeah, that's kind of where I'd get started. And it might seem like, oh, this is tough, it's hard, but if you stick with it, you will see results.
Oh, that's amazing. Well, you do so much good work. You've worked with so many people right now. How can people get more information or learn more about this belief system? I think it's valuable. I think it's invaluable. Where do they find more of your content and information?
Sure, thank you. Yeah. So I have a website. It's ToddSylvesterInspires.com. And right when you pull it up, there's a video. You can click on the video and it talks about the bully. It's a really well done video. It's awesome. You can actually reach out to me on there. You know, you can. There's a link there that you can reach out to me, and it'll send me an email. I really don't have any problem if anyone wants to call me on my cell. You can shoot me a text even. My cell number is 801-870-4412. You can follow me on social media. It's at TS Inspires. And I'm doing a podcast as well.
Belief Cast.
I actually call it a Belief Cast because I'm just passionate about belief systems. And so, look me up on iTunes. You just type in Belief Cast. Love to have you check it out. I'm trying to hold on to Jimmy's coattails here and follow his lead. But yeah, that'd probably be the best way, those areas to get a hold of me.
Cool. Yeah, I think it's just such a powerful concept with, the idea of beliefs and what you truly believe about yourself is going to become your reality. People ask me all the time, like, how did you make such and such happen? How did you do that? And I was like, honestly, I just kind of decided I was going to do it.
Yeah.
It was like I had that belief that was going to happen. And when things fall short, I can trace it back. I'm like, oh, I think I was questioning myself at that moment.
Exactly.
And so, this has been a great reminder for me to sit down and just rehash all those things. So thank you so much. And
thank you. What an honor to be on this. Thank you for having me.
You bet. Thank
Appreciate
you.
it. Thanks, Jimmy.